a high-profile case.
The live guest on a podcast called J is for Justice.
I think they just hope that she returns no matter what. Oh my God, that's Megan's house. Oh my God. Oh my God.
And then,
Wait a second, you guys. We have breaking news. All of a sudden in the chat, there was breaking news that there was a raid going on in Houston, Texas. It says it may be connected to a high-profile case.
That's her best friend. She would not be there.
Hey, good evening, everyone, and welcome to J is for Justice. My name is Jay, and welcome to my channel. If you are new here and you like what you see tonight, please hit that subscribe button. And as always, please give a thumbs up to this video. It really helps my channel out, and it doesn't cost y'all a thing. Tonight, we have some exciting stuff. We have a newbie to the YouTube world. Not a newbie to the podcast world, but to the YouTube world. And I also have sleuths with me tonight. She doesn't have her camera on tonight. She doesn't have it working, but she is here. And then I would like to introduce our guest, Mark Gillespie. He is a forensic scientist and private investigator. So all of you guys in chat, please welcome Mark. Mark has been involved in a few podcasts, but tonight is his debut on YouTube. Yay, Mark! You look scared. You look petrified. So we are officially live. So wipe the sweat from your brow. I know this has got to be nerve-wracking for someone with your background, but I'm really honored that you took the time out of your evening, though, to come on my channel, and I want to thank you for doing that for us. Aria, we are so pleased to have you. No, for real, like we were so excited. I know I wasn't feeling well on Sunday, so we had to postpone, and everybody was like, where's that silver fox? And I was like, what? What are you talking about? And they were like, this thumbnail that you have out, Jay, like, we were supposed to do this. Like, what's going on? And I said, he's coming back on Thursday. So everyone's happy you're here and you're blushing. So we just had to break the ice. Yeah, you were muted. Yeah. You're not anymore.
You might want to get used to the mute button with me.
Yikes. Yeah, he told me to do that was just a little test. A little test.
Oh goodness.
I was just playing with you, Mark. No, for real. Like everybody is super excited. We cover so many cases where we get these reports and we have no idea what they mean. We can read them. Sometimes we can't even pronounce them. We go over them, but we don't really know what all of it means. And it's really exciting to have someone like you who can break that down for us.
Yeah.
Well, good. I'm glad to be here. Glad to help any way I can. And yeah, they can be confusing. Pronunciation of certain words can be a tremendous challenge. So,
well, yeah, it's like you got to Google what it.
Trouble.
You got to Google sometimes, like, what is that? But yeah, but your background, I want everyone to kind of get a good idea of who you are, what you've done, because the list is huge. So why don't you tell us how you got into where you are now? Like, how did you end up where you're sitting right now? You're probably still asking yourself that question as you sit.
Yeah, I really am. Why did I come in my office and sit in this chair tonight? So. Well, ever since I was young, I was always a dreamer. I set goals for myself. I wrote goals on a little yellow 3x5 card. So I knew pretty much what I wanted to do from, when I was in high school. And full transparency here. I'm old. I'm I'm 63 years old, so I've been around for a while. And so when I talk about high school, we didn't have computers, we didn't have any of those high-tech devices. So we had yellow 3x5 cards. So what I did was I just kind of jotted down what my goals were for my life. And my dad was in the Air Force. He was a colonel and had a very successful career in the Air Force. And he's my hero. I talk to him every day. I love him immensely. And so I knew that I wanted to follow his footsteps and serve in the Air Force, serve our country. I also had a passion for investigations, criminal investigations. And since I had desired to become, an Air Force officer, I learned quickly about the Air Force Office of Special Investigations. Now, keep in mind, back in the time when I was in high school and college, 75 to 79, guess what was a popular TV show? $6 Million Man with Steve Austin was his name. And he was an OSI agent. And so I pretty much, I didn't pattern my career after the $6 Million Man, but I just thought it was a fortunate coincidence that, that he was an OSI agent. I wanted to be an OSI agent. And so that's where I went. So I graduated from college. I went to Troy State University in Troy, Alabama, and was commissioned in the Air Force. As a second lieutenant, I was assigned straight at headquarters OSI in Washington, D.C.
Oh, wow.
I graduated from the OSI Special Investigations Academy that was in Washington at the time, and became a special agent in 1983. And the mission of OSI, I'll just tell you, OSI was created actually in 1947, 1948 timeframe after World War II. And it was created as a result of a major fraud investigation. And the Secretary of the Air Force at the time wanted an investigative agency in the Air Force that could handle major felony investigations. So he went to the FBI, J. Edgar Hoover. J. Edgar Hoover assigned his deputy director, John Carroll, and John Carroll was tasked with the responsibility to create an organization that mirrored the FBI. So OSI had its roots with the FBI. Our first agents were FBI agents that were dispatched from the Bureau to OSI. And after a while, we integrated OSI with military agents, civilian agents, and transitioned the FBI special agents out of OSI. And so that's how OSI got its start. So I love OSI. It was a great experience, a great career, some of the best people, great investigations. We did counterintelligence, counterespionage, crimes against people, crimes against property.
So somebody who isn't familiar with exactly what that means, which I'm not, I don't really have any military in my family per se. Like my dad was in the Korean War. He's a vet, but you know what I don't know what all of the, like Dre knew right away when she knew what that was.
As soon as I seen OSI, I knew.
So like what exactly, I mean, can you tell us like what are the most like dangerous things you ever did?
Well, our mission was, we were the investigative agency for the Air Force. And like I just rattled off some of our investigative, mission areas. We conducted all felony investigations for the Air Force. And, we were responsible for conducting investigations that affected the interests of the Air Force and the Department of Defense. So, as you can imagine, we pretty much run every type of investigation imaginable. Fraud investigations, major procurement fraud, counterintelligence operations, counterespionage operations. All that is using tradecraft and spies, and counterintelligence is countering the intelligence threat against the United States by our adversaries. We did anti-terrorism operations. Back then, a lot has changed from the late 70s till now in regards to anti-terrorism. So that whole landscape has changed. But when you think about the FBI conducting fraud investigations and major felony investigations involving racketeering, organized crime, some murders, things like that, we do the same thing. And it was an exciting career. Got a lot of training, had great experience. And I tell you what, OSI produced some of the best officers, best agents, best leaders around. And I was real proud of my service, and just had a lot of great experiences and a lot of great stories to tell. While I was in Washington, D.C. in 1983, I got my master's degree from George Washington University in forensic science, because back in 1975 or 76, on that little yellow 3x5 card, I also put on there, my third goal was to become was to become a forensic specialist, a forensic scientist. So I pursued my master's degree in forensic science at GWU, which is a great institution for forensic science. And I was just very fortunate to be in that position to do that. So that served me well throughout my career. And I got an Amber Alert going off. I'm sorry.
Oh, I can hear that.
So, throughout my career, I've employed my forensic knowledge and skills, very well, and so that pretty much led me to where I am now. I spent a career in OSI in the Air Force. I took an early retirement in 1996 when they were offering an early retirement program for officers back during the Clinton days, when they were trying to draw down military spending.
Mm-hmm.
And so at the time, I'd been lured away by the Austin Police Department Forensic Science Division, and they wanted me to be their first civilian director. So I jumped at that opportunity. I took it and went to APD, became the forensic director, spent about 7 years there.
Wow.
And started DNA lab, reorganized our forensic division, started a crime scene unit, got a bond election passed to build a new state-of-the-art forensic science center. And so I had a lot of good experiences there, and which I deeply cherish. And then in 2002, I proposed a forensic science program to a local university here in Austin called St. Edward's University. And they that was back when, as you well remember, CSI, all the forensic shows, NCIS were gaining a lot of popularity. And so they liked the idea, and before you knew it, we developed a curriculum for an undergraduate degree program. And so I stayed there at St. Edward's for about 8 or 9 years. While I was there in 2004, I got my PI license here in Texas. And so it was hard to try to build a company and teach full time at the same time. So things were really moving with my PI business. And so I left teaching after in about 2009, and been focusing on my PI business ever since.
Wow. And you've grown, right? Like your PI business has been very, very busy.
Yeah, it's been very busy. And, I started off, being a jack of all trades and a master of none. I wanted to do everything, every type of investigation, because, essentially I could because of my training. But when you become an entrepreneur and a private investigator, and people are looking at what you do, sometimes if you say you do everything, they kind of think, well, if he does everything, how can he be good in everything if he's doing that? So over the years, I really developed a passion for criminal defense investigation, cold cases, human trafficking, sex trafficking, missing persons. So those are the things I do now. Those are the things, that's my bread and butter. And I love it. And I'm very passionate about.
So it just kind of happened. It happened like that. It wasn't something you planned. That's just kind of your passion.
Yeah, you're right. Well, my passion forced me to evolve my company into honing in on several key investigative areas. Forensic consultations, cold cases, criminal defense.
Interesting.
So, and I've been doing it. I've got a great team. I'd like to say we're having an impact on our clients and our society. And I tell you what, I don't want to do anything else. I probably will never retire. And, along the way, I've met some great people. I've been aligned with Sheila Wysocki, who is the founder of Without Warning, and she's got a number of podcasts that have been very successful.
Mm-hmm.
So I do a lot of work with her and her team, and I think we've had a tremendous impact on a number
We're
of
familiar
cases.
with Sheila. We watched some of the podcast episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah, very interesting. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just had to.
No, that's okay. So I think that pretty much brings us up to date. And,
Well, that's quite a mouthful, but thank you I want to thank you for your service.
Yes.
To our country. Very impressive. And it sounds like not only did you do a lot of things, but you were involved in creating a lot of things, which
I was in the right place. I've been blessed.
Yeah.
And, it's not me, it's God.
But you were put there for a reason, and I think that's awesome.
And it's very noble that you followed in your father's footsteps too.
Yeah, I can't think of a better person to follow. So and I'm still following him. So he's
How old is your dad?
Okay, he was born in 33, so I think that makes him 87. And he's strong as an ox. He looks like he's 55.
He's the same age as my dad, actually. My dad's 87 as well.
Well, great.
Yeah.
And thank your dad for his service. Korean War.
Yes.
That was a tough place.
Yeah.
I was stationed in Korea and our in Osan. So your dad, you have to ask your dad about Hill 180. Because
about what?
Just ask him Hill, HILL, 180.
Okay.
It's where some of the most horrendous hand-to-hand combat battles took place during the Korean War in right at Osan Air Base, south of Seoul. So your dad, my hat's off to him. Bless his heart. And thank you for his service.
Thank you. All right. Well, very, very impressive stuff. So I kind of picked something that I wanted to go over with you, and I had some questions that go along with that. But before we get started, I know some people in chat were like, who was the picture on the screen? Blah, blah, blah. The pictures are of Lori Vallow and her third husband, Joseph Ryan. Now, we've been following this. I don't expect someone to get caught up. If you've never heard of the case, you can go back. I have a whole playlist. You can start from the beginning. We have a whole timeline video. I mean, you can get caught up anywhere in that playlist. But who we're talking about tonight is Lori Vallow's third husband and the biological father of Tylee. He also was the adopted father of Colby, the oldest boy. And he died on April 3rd, 2018. And here's just a little side note for those of us following the case, that Alex Cox went to jail for assaulting Joseph with a stun gun and allegedly threatened to kill him. Also, Lori Vallow was the only next of kin to the ME's office at the time of Ryan's death. She never returned any of their calls or notified Joseph's sister of her brother's passing, even though they had been friends since 2002 and she had her contact info. There was no funeral for Joseph. Another family member was contacted by a funeral home more than a month after he had died, and he was cremated. So there's no option to exhume the body. So all of these strange deaths in this case, with Joseph being one, Charles Vallow being another, her brother Alex being another, lots of deaths. So they're reinvestigating all of these deaths around Lori Vallow. And I passed on the latest that was released, which was the incident report, the autopsy report, and the toxicology report. So, Mark, if you want to let me know where you want to start, I can pull it up on the screen so everybody can follow along as we go. What do you want to start with?
Well, I think probably one of the most interest. We good?
Yeah, go ahead.
One of the most interesting aspects of the case is happening right now, as I understand it, and that's the FBI has interest in Joseph's death.
Mm-hmm.
Well, why does the FBI have interest in Joseph's death?
Yeah.
So, given the history of Lori and the way she has captured the media and the general public on her behavior, on her not cooperating or not talking about where her children are or have been. We hear news reports of the children's grandparents pleading for Lori to, tell the public where the kids are. It's a fascinating case. And so you look at her marital history, and you look at her immediate family history. There's a lot of personality there. And all that personality doesn't paint a very good picture in my mind, and I think you would agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of violence. There's been a lot of, strange and unusual activity. Their religious beliefs, and I'm not going to attack religious beliefs, but their beliefs have raised a lot of attention. And so it's just a fascinating case. So to find out that Joseph died in 2018, and now that the FBI is interested, well, I know why they're interested, because for years Lori has just been raising these little flags everywhere she goes about her relationships, about the drama in her family, about the violence, of family members. And so didn't we say that one of the other, there's another husband that was, that is deceased also, correct?
Yeah. Her second husband, or no, Ray, correct me. Fourth husband, Charles Vallow. Yeah. Her third and fourth are both deceased.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I've known, and that I've heard through, mainly through your live stream programs, which I really love, is that life insurance has kind of been an issue. She has collected on life insurance, as I understand, from her deceased husband, and I understand she also had a life insurance policy on Joseph. Isn't that correct?
Yes. I believe.
I think it is. Yeah, I believe it is correct.
Well, and I think that's why.
Yes.
One of the interesting facts that the FBI is interested in, because I don't know too many ex-wives that still have, active insurance policies on ex-husbands that they've been deceased from for years. So it's kind of, I'm not saying that there's foul play involved. I think facts could lead to that, but I just think it's an interesting scenario, given her reputation and what she's currently sitting in jail for now. So
yeah,
I think the FBI may be onto something, and I think it's good. I hope that justice can be served if if justice needs to be served, if there's an issue for justice to be served.
Mm-hmm.
So I think now the question is, Joseph, he died, I think you said in April of 2018.
Correct.
He died, even the death notification was interesting because I think he died alone in his apartment, and he wasn't found for, a number of days.
A week. It was like a week.
Almost a week. Yeah.
Correct. And the only reason he was found was as the result of an astute neighbor who hadn't seen Joseph, and so called in a welfare check on welfare for Joseph. And thank goodness they did that. Unfortunately, they found him deceased. And so I think at that time, it was an unattended death. There didn't appear to be any foul play. And then the family notification, I think, is also interesting. I think the police called Lori fairly soon after he was found, and some of the videos I've heard from the media, she was very, very uncaring about his passing, didn't really care, and she was pretty hateful. And she didn't even call Joseph's sister, I think.
Yeah, his sister. She didn't even notify her. And this is a pattern with Lori too. When her fourth husband passed away, she didn't even notify his kids. His kids were texting her, "What's going on?" They found out their dad had passed away, and she wouldn't give him any answers and wouldn't text him back. So
no, she's very cryptic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I just think that's very unusual and odd behavior. So I think it may represent some very deep-seated hate, aggression, I don't know what's going through her head, but
it's interesting, Mark, though, that she possibly, we kind of have figured it out, that her brother was kind of a hitman for her.
Yes.
And that brings all kinds of weird dynamics, like what would make a brother kill for his sister?
Like what level of commitment?
Yeah, where does that come from? It's very, very odd. But back to Joseph. There was a few questions that his sister had. I wanted to clarify because there was an answer in chat about the life insurance. The life insurance was for Tylee. It was required by Texas law per child support orders.
Okay.
So I guess he had to include that in the.
That's a good point. Thank you for sharing that.
Mm-hmm. So one of the questions I was looking at, which one did I want to go over? Oh, right here. She just has some questions about the wording of I'm on the coroner report, page 2, under the summary and opinion.
Okay.
She found it concerning that it said that he was heavy-set adult male. And she says he was in really good shape. Is there, what does that mean in the professional forensics world?
Well,
anything at all?
I'm not sure that it's, and please don't take my words in a negative fashion. I don't mean it in that way, but I'm not sure that a discrepancy like that is real critical. I know that when someone is laying on a steel table and they're measuring, it's not going to be an accurate measure as it would be if you were, at your doctor's appointment, doing a physical where you get an exact weight, an exact height. The weight, 180 pounds is not heavy. They use the terminology in the report that I think they said that that he was obese, if I'm not mistaken. He was heavy
set, yeah,
heavy set adult.
Heavy set. Well, I'm 5'9" and 78 to 180 pounds, and I'm not heavyweight. So he and I were pretty much the same size. So
I mean, without being graphic, could it be that he was, since he was there for a week, was he decomposed?
bloating?
Or
bloating of the body?
Yeah, that was the next thing I was going to say, is that when they found him, they found him in progressed stages of decomposition. He'd been there about a week. The indoor temperature was 74, so it wasn't hot, but it wasn't it wasn't that cool. But he was decomposing. He had skin slippage. He was bloated. All the normal things that a body goes through when it's decomposing. So when you're bloated, that really can change the appearance of a body. I mean,
that makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah. So to the medical examiner, they didn't see him, on March 30th, when he was alive and well. Whether it was 5'9" or 5'11" and 180 pounds, that's, he was what sounded to be in decent shape, had a good physical appearance. But death can change all that, especially when you decompose. So your body is significantly bloated, swollen, and it's just a terrible mess. And so I think the word picture that the medical examiner put in the report just painted a picture that most of the people that knew him just didn't feel was it was hard for them to imagine.
Yeah, I bet. It's so graphic. But the evidence, there was no evidence of him abusing any drugs. But there were medications that were found in the house. Do you know what all of those medications are? I know what some of them are.
Yeah, the interesting thing is that Joseph, I don't recall, I have to look to see what his age was, but he was under 60. He was in his late 50s, I believe.
59.
59. So he, in my opinion, he represented a typical 60-year-old male. Someone that had
what is hyperlipidemia?
Well, that's basically high cholesterol. That's
okay.
High concentration of fats and lipids in the blood.
Okay. So he had normal high blood pressure, high cholesterol, depression. He had hurt his back. He fell off a ladder. Nothing out of the ordinary.
No, absolutely not. So he was on a regimen of medications that he was prescribed, for the hypertension, for the high cholesterol, or the cholesterol issue. He had hydrocodone, I believe, for back problem. He had antidepressants. So, when you look at what most people, in fact, many of the listeners here, if they think about their dads, their dads are probably in a similar state. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I'm just saying, we all have,
as we get older,
as we age,
whether it's diabetes or hypertension or high cholesterol, life happens. That's what happens. And he appeared to have just what many people come down with. So but nevertheless, he was still what appeared to be a healthy person. But I think what they did was that the medical examiner in their findings, as depicted in the autopsy report, basically they ruled his cause of death as arteriosclerotic cardiovascular disease. And in my opinion, they didn't do a full autopsy on him. They only did a physical examination, and they took tissue samples. but I'm feeling that based on his medical history, that they were able to learn shortly after his death that they assumed he had, heart disease, had, plaque in his blood. He had, clogged blood vessels. So I haven't seen anywhere where they've actually taken, dissected his heart,
Yeah.
and
Well, then he was cremated, so
absolutely
there went all that.
Everything's gone. But they did take specimens from his liver, and they tested those, and those results are contained in the autopsy report, and nothing unusual was found. It did find a handful of issues, but we're talking about the medication for the blood pressure, for his hypertension, for his back pain, his back problem. He had Tylenol, he had ibuprofen. So the typical ingredients that many of us take every day or several days of the week. So nothing really stood out in his autopsy in regards to the toxicology assessment and interpretation.
And none of the like the amounts of those drugs is alarming at all?
No, it's not. And had it been, they would have flagged that in the autopsy report. They would have reported the high levels of toxicants, but that was not done. And I personally do not feel that the levels were anything that should raise concern. But that truth is stranger than fiction.
Yes.
Yeah. So my question for you at that point is, when the FBI is looking into this, what exactly would they revisit if you don't have a body to exhume, to revisit? So what would be their next steps? What are they doing while we're sitting here waiting?
Well, there's a lot of things. What they do is they launch an investigation. They start doing what we call victimology, psychological autopsy. They talk to people that he knew, that knew his lifestyle, knew what was going on. They could search social media, cell phone records, anything that has a clue of what was going on. If they develop so basically they're in the mode of gathering intelligence, collecting information, building a profile, so to speak, of his life, what he was going through, what his relationship with his kids was, what his relationship with Lori was. What did people know about him? What did they learn from him that he told about his family, his problems, his marital problems, his issues with Lori, or issues with other family members? There's a lot of people that are out there that know an awful lot about him. So what they do is they try to basically they construct a mosaic of information, if you will, of his life, and they just look for things that stand out, that kind of catch their attention. They could also, I know they're going to be looking at much of the social media and digital forensics of Lori and her husband, and to see what she's been communicating, what she's been texting or doing Google searches for.
Are those two able, a little off topic, but are her current husband and her able to communicate if they're both being charged with the same crimes and being held in jail?
Are they in the same institution?
Dre, are they? I don't think they are. I think they're in separate.
They're in separate, yeah.
One doesn't have a women's center. So the one where he's at is just men, and then she's with women.
Yeah. Isn't he in Fremont County and she's in Madison County?
Yes, that's it. Yeah, he's in Fremont County. Yep. Yeah,
my experience is, to answer your question, my experience is that Yeah, they are able to communicate through the prison telephone systems, Securitas, or whatever the system is. They have, inmates have, a lot of high tech communication device, video systems, like we're talking here, telephone systems. They have to pay for it, but they can still communicate.
Wow.
They can write and communicate in letter, but those communications are going to be screened, incoming and outgoing.
Mhm.
Their conversations are also going to be monitored. But so many times, people when they're incarcerated, they don't worry about
Who's
you
listening?
know, being careful about what they say because the system is listening, and
Yes.
they do.
Well, yeah, you know what? The one that comes to mind is Casey Anthony.
Oh,
Her
yeah.
jailhouse calls with her parents.
Those are intriguing.
Yeah, that was an awful case too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But no, I think they're able to stay in contact with each other. But I hope I answered your question. I think the FBI has a lot of information and intelligence gathering to do, and they're excellent at it. And they kind of look at Joseph's life and the family life of Lori as being a huge gravel pit where you've got just millions and millions of stones that are just piled on each other.
Mm-hmm.
And the FBI will literally turn over every stone in that gravel pit to see what they find.
And I think that's kind of what they did with Chad's wife. She was determined to have died in her sleep of natural causes. Healthy, 40-year-old woman dies in her sleep, and no one questioned it. He had her buried, but they did exhume her body, and we haven't gotten those results. We're waiting. So do you think, this is what I'm going to ask you. So they haven't released them. They say that it's complete. Could that be because they are going to press further charges along with those results? Is that why they haven't released them?
I'm sorry, they haven't released what specific?
His wife's autopsy results
It's sealed currently.
after she was exhumed.
It's very possible. Autopsy reports by nature are hard to get a hold of anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But if this is an ongoing investigation, they're going to seal those, or they're going to protect them. They're not going to release those.
Well, if they ruled out any foul play with her death, do you think they would have said, "Hey, we got the results, the conclusion she did die of natural causes," and put that aside, or would they even let us know that at this point?
I think because this is an ongoing inquiry, I think they're going to keep tight wraps on it. I don't think, and I don't blame them. I would do that. I would not, because what you do is you let the cat out of the bag too soon.
Would you notify the family? Would they know, or nobody knows? Everybody's in the dark.
The family, they wouldn't tell the family.
No,
they would keep them in the dark, and that's just to safeguard information.
Right, right.
Loose lips sink ships, and I mean that's a good analogy, but I don't mean to be critical of the family, but it would be better knowing that you can trust the FBI to do what they need to do and keep everything quiet rather than risk, satisfying a desire by a family member to have that information. And the next thing you know, that information is compromised, and one little breach could wreck the whole investigation. So, they don't want to do that.
It's basically like safeguarding protocol.
For true crime followers like myself, though, and everybody who's watching, we get really impatient. But we do know there's a reason why they're quiet. We're like, come on, we need to know. But we do understand why they can't. There's one case we're watching in Colorado where there's a missing mom. She went missing on Mother's Day. And there really hasn't been any information about it. The only
Yeah.
thing we got the other day was that,
The GPS.
yeah, the husband's GPS didn't match up with what the timeline he gave investigators, and he refused 2 polygraphs. So that's really all we've gotten. And we're just sitting here waiting, but we know they're working hard, and there's a reason why we're not getting information. But nonetheless, it's frustrating.
You made a key statement. There's a reason,
Mhm.
and hopefully something positive is happening and will result.
Oh, Joseph's sister Annie is in chat. Hi, Annie. She had LASIK surgery.
Annie.
She said that the judge made a stipulation. They were ordered to not communicate due to the conspiracy charges. So I guess the judge did say that they could not communicate. I didn't know that.
I didn't either.
But despite that ruling, prisons are an interesting place, and I know many PIs will agree with me, and my law enforcement colleagues, that just because you're in prison doesn't mean your communication is restricted, even if a judge orders that it be restricted. So I would not be surprised if they had found some form of communication that could circumvent the system. So, but I certainly would understand why a judge would issue an order to cease communication.
No, I fully agree. Now, Annie had asked a question earlier. I don't know if you'd seen it, Jay, but she was asking Mark, is there anything that can trigger a heart attack that wouldn't show up in a tox report?
That's a good question. Yeah, I mean, death is an unusual beast. And that's actually a tough question to answer, but I think anything is possible. But there of course there was nothing remarkable about his toxicology, but that's not to say that that he still died of natural causes, a heart issue. So I personally, anything is possible.
Yeah, so it'd have to be something pretty alarming that would stand out.
Well, I don't. Yeah, it would have to be something. You're right, pretty alarming to stand out. But there are stranger things have happened. So it'd be interesting to see where all of this leads.
Yeah, for sure.
The unfortunate thing is that his body was cremated, and when they did they didn't do a full internal examination. His autopsy report was 2 pages plus a cover page, and let me just kind of tell you what goes into a normal autopsy. He had an external examination only. They didn't do a complete autopsy, which would have included what we call an internal examination, and that would have included examining his head, his neck and body cavities, his respiratory system, his cardiovascular system, his liver and biliary system, his spleen, pancreas, adrenals, genitourinary system, gastrointestinal tract, and a microscopic examination of all of his organs. So they didn't, to the best of my understanding and knowledge, they didn't do any of that. They just looked at his
medical history, and looked at his medical history.
Looked at his medical history in concert with the liver samples that they took to determine the toxicants in his system.
I did find that kind of intriguing because I have actually looked over some other autopsy reports, and when you had sent the file to me, Jay, I'm sitting there thinking there's only 4 pages. Like usually they weigh the heart, they weigh the brain.
Oh,
they
I
talk about
know.
the
They're always
lungs.
so long.
Yes, it's.
I have the George Floyd autopsy report right here.
Oh, wow.
It is, it's 10 times bigger than Joseph's. So, I mean, it's a complete autopsy, including an external and internal and microscopic examination. So, even if Joseph had a complete autopsy performed, it would be, 7 or 8 pages long,
Yeah.
roughly. They would go through every one of those systems.
Now, Mark, do
biological
they
systems
only
like-
do that if they have a reason or they can't figure out? I mean, how does that work? Who makes that determination? Like, hey, we're only going to do this like really brief. I don't know what
Well, and that's a good question. I was hoping it would come up. He was found alone. He lived alone. He was unattended, and so there were no signs of foul play, no signs of struggle. There was nothing unusual. So, they brought him in. They looked at his family. They determined what his family, what his personal medical history was. Probably based on the meds that he had in his home. So that kind of basically painted a picture for them. And so they probably just determined that, this isn't, it's not worth pulling out all the stops on doing a thorough, complete autopsy. They just
so they make a
surface.
They make a judgment based on the circumstance and in medical history, and they put all of that. It's like one. They put it all together in one big picture.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So basically, what they do, a toxicologist, works in concert with. A toxicologist report is extremely critical to a forensic pathologist to make a cause of death and manner of death determination, which are two completely different things. So the toxicologist is probably one of the most integral parts of our forensic system, because they basically find the buried treasure, and they determine basically what's going on with that body. The pathologist will do a complete autopsy, but the pathologist doesn't know what's going on within the blood, within the liver, within the spleen, the pancreas, the heart, the lungs, the brain. The toxicologist has the key that unlocks all of that. So what the final conclusions and the interpretations of a forensic toxicologist, what they do is many factors have to kind of be considered all together. So what they do is they look at the histological or the microscopic evidence. What does the histology say? What does the tissue show? Right. From a microscopic standpoint, what does the autopsy say? What is the contribution of natural disease like diabetes, heart disease, cancer, things like that? What are the known circumstances of the case? And then finally, what's the medical history? So they put all those factors and they come up with a logical conclusion about how this person succumbed. And then they give their information to the forensic pathologist, the medical examiner, and then they make the determination of cause of death and manner of death. Manner of death being homicide, suicide, accidental, undetermined, natural.
Interesting. So go ahead, Dre.
Oh, I was just going to say it's very intriguing to hear this being broken down, because when you look at different autopsy reports, you're almost getting different language, different verbiage. So it's interesting to hear it in layman's terms, how it would be viewed with someone with that keen sense of eye.
Yeah, because we try to Google it, Mark.
Yeah.
Well,
Seriously, we Google it.
Yes.
well, that's understandable. Thank God we've got the internet where we can do that. But,
Right.
But that only goes so far.
And that's where we have you.
Exactly.
No, very interesting though, and I hope that that helped answer some of Annie's questions, because my heart breaks for her. She didn't even find out that her brother had passed away for weeks.
I can't imagine that's tragic.
Horrible.
And then to hear, just that he was by himself, it's just heartbreaking. Everybody there's so many people in this case that have been affected.
Well, can I make a comment?
Sure.
There are thousands of autopsies that are performed every day across the country, throughout the world, and every decedent that is cut open and their organs are analyzed and their bodies are looked at and examined by forensic pathologists, forensic toxicologists, the whole medical legal investigation system. I think what many times the system fails to understand is that person that they're working on had a heart, had a brain, had a life, had a family, had a dog, had a business. There was something that people loved about that person. So what I'm getting at is that many times they're viewed as just a piece of property that's being worked on to arrive at a conclusion or an answer. And a lot of times they don't understand the loss that's incurred by family and friends. So when you have someone like Joseph who's found alone, no family present, no sign of a family life where he was living, they tend to, I think automatically draw an impression or a conclusion or an assumption that I think works against the compassionate part of life. Does that make sense?
No,
Sure,
it does.
yeah.
So, they don't. And then you have our medical legal investigation system is all supported by a budget. So they're looking to cut costs. They're looking to cut corners. They're looking to minimize expenditures, utilize as few resources as possible just to save taxpayer money. And that's the harsh reality of it, where, when you get down to it, I think a lot of law enforcement agencies don't investigate every single thing because there's a cost tag attributed to it.
Well, and they only have so much manpower too, right?
Yeah.
That's true. But I look at it differently with an autopsy. I think that is something that the family deserves good answers. They deserve every stone to be turned over, every crevice to be looked into. They deserve that. I would want that for my family. I would hope people would want that for me.
I mean, I can understand in an elderly person, not having an autopsy done, but someone, I mean, I guess, like you said, you have to take into consideration he was by himself, and Lori was the next of kin, and she wasn't telling anyone. It's just a messed up situation all around.
Well, let me say this. Let's just say, how different would the game be if his sister was notified of his death prior to the autopsy? She could have been an icebreaker, breaking through a glacier of ice to make sure that the right thing was done to her desires, to support her, to support her family. But she wasn't there. That's why I just wish that more time, effort, and compassion would be devoted to these people. But you know what? The reality is it just doesn't work that way.
Yeah, it's sad because it's like, you're telling someone's story of what happened to them and you want that level of specificity, especially in something like that. It's sad. It's very sad.
Yeah, who wants to bury a family member with a huge question mark over their head?
Yeah.
What really happened? So that's why I just am glad that the FBI is getting involved. And it may not lead to anywhere, but you know what? There are plenty of flags that have popped up out of the ground that are just waving hugely, that I think could lead to something big in this case.
I agree.
Hopefully murder charges, because neither one of them has been charged with murder. So they're going to pin it on the dead brother. Crazy stuff. But yeah, I mean, they do deserve, I agree. They deserve answers for closure. And, do you think, Mark, that just people in that line of work, I don't know about you, I'm not going to, but do you have to get to some level of like desensitized to it, where it's your job, does it become like mundane?
Well, okay, that's a good question. Let me tell you how I handle situations like this. I've been to many autopsies, and people say, "Oh man, how can you stand that?" The worst autopsies, I go to an autopsy and it does not affect me at all. The first autopsy I went to, it affected me tremendously. It was a Korean woman. She was a bar worker. She was an alcoholic. She was extremely attractive. She met a GI. They had a relationship. Next thing you know, she was found hanging from her closet, and so and there were some unusual circumstances that kind of indicated there could have been foul play. So I go to her autopsy, and as soon as they opened her up, it was like all of a sudden and it was my first autopsy. All of a sudden I got tunnel vision.
Oh.
I profusely sweated. I was dripping sweat. The smell was something I'd never smelled before. And it was she'd been hanging for like 3 days, and so she basically had fermented, and it was just awful.
Yeah.
Well, after that was the icebreaker. After that, I changed my whole view about an autopsy. I went into that autopsy thinking she was a daughter, a sister, a niece, a mother. So that I had a lot of emotional attachment, because I look at her and then I think about my family. I think about my parents and my sisters. So you develop an emotional attachment. You start to think of them as a human being that was laughing a day ago.
Yeah.
I had to change all that. So now I approach them as a piece of property when I'm in the autopsy, because I can't I have to look at them as a piece of evidence, and I want to figure out what went wrong. And I can't do that if I have an emotional attachment that takes away my extreme focus.
Yeah.
So anyway, but I'm not saying that I have that. I still have compassion for people that have died. I just treat an autopsy extremely different than I did the very first autopsy I went to.
That's actually very interesting. I went to school for medical billing and coding, and they gave us an opportunity to join a part of a cadaver lab. And we had to go in and get to determine how the person, the cause of death and everything. And it was at first I was really, really nervous because I had never seen a body like that before. It's formaldehyde. They've got it all. It's their cadaver. They're with that cadaver for so many months or years of training. it was very, very, very interesting, but it is emotional, because that's someone's life. That was someone's child, someone's dad, someone's
Right.
mother.
You bring up an excellent point. And I'm going to give a shout out to Kelly Harrell, who works with me. She's an all-star in my office.
Hey, Kelly.
Hi, Kelly.
She plans a Texas EMS conference of about 5,000 medical professionals across Texas and surrounding states. It's a huge undertaking, and she invited me to go to the 2 years ago to Fort Worth to be part of the cadaver lab there in Fort Worth.
Oh,
and
wow.
We had like 6 cadavers. Most of them were, male senior citizens, but it was just a tremendous experience. So if anyone has the opportunity to go to a cadaver lab and just see what goes on, it is an extremely valuable experience, and you'll gain a lot of.
I used to watch Dr. G.
Yeah.
Dr. G? Yeah, I loved that show. It was on HBO, I think.
Yep. That was a very good show. It's actually really neat, the cadaver labs, because they're donating their body to science. That's how we're able to learn,
That's awesome.
what's aided by, diseases or anything genetic.
I'm thinking about doing that myself, but I think it's wonderful.
Yes.
I think we should freeze your body like Walt Disney. They said Walt Disney's frozen, and he wants to be thawed out and brought back when they can do it in the future.
Okay.
Yeah. So we'll put Mark and Walt in the freezer and bring them back. And
I don't want any chats coming up on that.
Oh boy. Well, no, very interesting stuff, really.
It is very, very
And Annie
interesting.
said in chat, thank you, and that everything that you had said made complete sense. So
Annie, we're behind you. I'm sorry for your loss. I know it's tough. I know you've been thrust into, the center of this public whirlwind of just an atrocious case, and I know it's got to be difficult for you. And I just hope things work out the way they are meant to work out.
yeah. Whatever that may be, we never know with this case. It could it changes every day. So tomorrow we have Chad Daybell. He's going to be in court in the morning at 9 a.m. Mountain Time, which
That'll be
is
great.
11 a.m. our time. So this is an arraignment in the district court. This is his first appearance in the district court. So not sure if it's going to be a short or a long. Someone had asked me that on YouTube. Aren't arraignments usually short, but they can bring up other business at an arraignment too, right, Mark?
They can.
Can they bring up new charges before an arraignment?
That's a good question. They probably could.
Not likely though at that venue.
It's hard to say. I think he'd probably have to know the charges before the arraignment, but
they wouldn't just surprise him with it.
yeah, I don't think they would.
We're all waiting with bated breath for murder charges.
Yes, we are.
These people, they need to pay for what they did, for sure. So yeah, Angela, you have to get up early. Actually, that's not early. It's 9 a.m. Mountain.
9 a.m. Mountain. Yeah.
10 Central, 11 Eastern. Come on. Get your coffee and get up and we'll watch the arraignment here. But anyways, Mark, I won't keep you anymore. I've taken over an hour of your time. But thank you so much for coming on. And Mark has a YouTube channel that we are going to put in the description of the video below, and also in the chat if you guys want to go over. Mark, why don't you tell us, I know you have like a little bit of your plan. Your YouTube channel's new, but you have some things in the works. You want to let everybody know what your focus is looking like now. It may change, trust me. But what is it looking like now?
This is a fast moving world of social media. Thank you. Yeah, I've been wanting to do this for a long time. Sheila Wysocki, she, bless her heart, she brought me into her program, and I just fell in love with crowdsourced justice and podcasts and the idea of doing YouTube channels. And so I started a YouTube channel called Mark of Innocence with Mark Gillespie.
Nice name.
Thank you. And we're going to begin a feature where we call it Forensic Fridays, where every Friday I'm going to go live, or some recorded, I think, and present a forensic topic or a criminal investigation topic that helps educate all of the people out there on things that I feel that that they would find interesting. You know, my groups that I'm targeting are the true crime people, the people that follow you, and
our whole community, I think, is going to love it, because we don't really have an expert in the field in our true crime community here.
Well, and I just think there's a lot that can be, we need to dispel the myths of the CSI effect. We need to talk about how accurate or inaccurate, useful forensic science really is. We need to talk about justice. We need to talk about the law enforcement system, criminal investigations, rights advisements, interviews, interrogations, admissibility of evidence, all this stuff. So
that's awesome. And that brings me to one question that I forgot to ask you when we were talking about Joseph Ryan. Was you had mentioned that they took a tissue sample, and I think it said in there from his thigh muscle.
Yes.
Would they, what would they do with that? Is that something they might still have? Or no?
Well, they will still have all the evidence. They will retain it. It'll be frozen. The thigh muscle is a the key tissues. And keep in mind he was decomposing. So the key sources of biological tissues for toxicology purposes are blood, urine, organs such as the liver, the spleen, and also the thigh muscle. The thigh muscle is far removed from organs, and it is a very strong and thick and big muscle. So it is an excellent source to obtain a toxicological sample from. So I'm pleased that they did that.
So that, let's say somebody was poisoned, would that be in that tissue sample?
Yeah, if you're poisoned, I mean, you're gonna be able to find traces of that poison. There weren't traces in the liver, so I kind of, I don't think that the thigh would possess any traces of any type of toxic
that makes sense.
substance.
You would have
Otherwise,
seen
we
it
would have
somewhere
known about
else. Yeah, you would have seen it somewhere else. The liver, you said. That makes sense. Well, thanks for answering that. But yeah, it looks like everybody's. Oh, Cheryl, I already subscribed to Mark. Cheryl T. Of course you did, Cheryl.
I do have a quick question.
Yeah, go
about,
ahead.
Like DNA testing. I've been following a lot on like the West Memphis 3 case, and they're talking about the MVAC machine, and it's some new method of DNA testing. What exactly is the MVAC? Is it something that's of value to the DNA world? I've always been curious about this.
Yeah, it is. But you know what? I'm not going to talk about that today because you're going to hear about it on a Forensic Friday.
Okay.
Oh, so you're not giving away any little breadcrumbs?
Trade secrets.
What the heck, Gillespie?
I don't want to spoil it.
All right, no spoilers here.
No spoilers.
But good question.
Thank you.
Well, there you go. Jot that down. That's going to be a good topic.
Yes.
So yeah, go over and subscribe to his channel. Hit the bell. Make sure you hit the bell for all the new notifications so that you get it. Because we don't know what he's going to do. He might go live. He might upload a video. He might come knocking on your door going, Mark Gillespie, open up.
And I probably don't even know what I'm going to do.
Well, with all your knowledge, I'm sure you can come up with something, and I'm sure it will be interesting. And if you ever, want to co-host on to just kind of poke fun at you while you're doing it, I'll be happy to do that.
Guarantee it.
Well, no, it's been fun. I mean, you can't be doom and gloom in this true crime all the time.
Exactly.
You got to find some humor somewhere, but you have to be truth about it. You have to have some, but we have fun, but we don't get out of line, right, Dre?
Exactly. Yeah, you got to have a little bit of humor in something kind of.
You do, because it is, especially when there's kids involved. It's like
yes,
that's the hardest part.
But we have respect.
Exactly.
Summed it up. All right, Mark Gillespie. Thank you for your time.
Well, thank you so much. I had a great time. You guys do a great show, and I'm very honored and humbled to be a part of it. And
thank you.
You got me as a subscriber forever.
Oh, thanks, Mark.
Well, thank you, Mark.
Yeah.
Thank you. Keep up the great work.
All right. We'll talk soon.
All right.
All right. Have a great night.
You too. Good night, everybody. Thank you, everybody.
All right, guys. So there you go. We had Mark Gillespie here, and he's got his channel. If you guys haven't subscribed, you can go over and do that now. I think it's been put up in chat. Let me find chat. I've got 50 windows open, Dre. I'm like, where is the chat? So there is someone in chat that was saying some things, and I just wanted to give them. They keep getting deleted. Don't delete them. I was asking another timed out again. But anyways, if you want to email me, you know who you are. jisforjustice@gmail.com. If you have something to say or something that bothers you, feel free to reach out via Facebook, email, whatever. But I ask that you respect my guests when they're on my panel.
Yes.
Yes. So, thanks for joining, Dre.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
You never know
you know how I am.
Yeah, well, you never know where the conversation's going to go, and you have all of this DNA genealogy stuff. You're like a genealogy.
I love genealogy.
Like nerdro. But I love it. I love it. My mom.
It's neat how everything ties in, though.
Yeah, my mom was big. My mom did her family tree and went way back, and I actually got access to her Ancestry account when she passed away. Yeah.
Oh, how far? Do you know off the top of your head how far she got? I
don't. I haven't looked at it yet because it's too hard.
Yeah.
Because she put a lot of work. Like there's pictures she added, and like I'll get emails now that there's people in our tree that are adding photos. Like I get her notification. So
yeah, and that's how they connect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I haven't gone in there yet. But she did a lot of work for years on that. They did that. My mom and dad did the DNA, spit, send it in.
Yes.
Find out where they're from or whatever. It was no surprise.
We actually got that.
You didn't do it yet, though, did you?
Not yet. No, I'm waiting. But now I'm going to do it since he's back home. We're going to do it.
Yeah. I would like to do it, too. I'd like to do it on my dog, actually.
They do have them for dogs.
I know. They have them on Amazon. It's like $100 and some. I want to know what she is.
But Bella, yes.
Yeah, she's got this weird, like, greyhound kind of like middle, and her tail's poofy like a Pomeranian. I don't know what she is. I'd love
like
to
a
see
shepherd or lab.
And then she has like the lab head. Yeah, like golden retriever head. Yeah. She's an interesting dog. Whoa, Janice Burns. She says, OMG, I found out my mom's dad was not her biological dad. Never passed with secrets.
Oh, wow. That's the one thing I'm telling you with this genealogy. Like, the one thing I'm still trying to figure out, I'm not really, like, inclined on this kind of stuff, but they do say when you do the saliva test that it mostly pulls from your maternal side.
Oh, really?
Yes. There's something with the chromosomes, your genes, all your stuff, that it mostly pulls from your maternal side. So if you want to get your paternal side, like your father's side, you would have to have them do it separately because it hits the tree. It saturates it basically.
So since both of my parents did it, I should be good and covered?
You should be good and covered because if dad did it, you're good.
Thanks, Mom and Dad.
No, my dad won't do it.
Oh, he refuses? He doesn't want
He's like, I don't want my DNA on file. I'm like, Dad.
In a database? Or, like he's got a lot to worry about, right?
Exactly.
So yeah, so tomorrow morning.
Yes, Chad Daybell, 9 a.m. Mountain Standard.
Got to get some sleep.
Yes.
I guess that's it. I don't see anything else going down in chat. It was good hearing from Mark. And I'm glad, you know what, Annie's I think she had to leave, but she said thank you, that she wanted those answers. I mean, what simple questions that she had, you know.
Yeah. You just to get that reassurance, you know, the right set of eyes are looking at it, or a second opinion.
The things that these people have had to go through because of Lori is just... It's
horrible.
I mean, it's really mind-boggling. It's crazy.
Yeah. It's unfathomable.
We'll see Family Guy in the morning. Don't you worry, Dre.
Yes. Oh, girl, I'm ready. I got to get me a little coffee, but I'm ready to see this guy.
I need a lot.
Lots of coffee.
Actually, 11 a.m. I'm good with that. That's perfectly fine. But I got up early. I was up at 4. I've been waiting up at 4.
Really?
And then I fall back asleep around 8, and then I wake up. It's 11 o'clock. I'm like, are you kidding me? My schedule is so messed up. And you know what? I wonder too how everybody else is. I mean, I know a lot of people have gone back to work and all that.
Yes.
But the ones that haven't, the ones that are still at home, I mean, how are you guys holding up? Because I'm just like, I feel weird.
I do too. I feel weird.
And I really didn't want to go like into this, but I went to the beach today and I was just like by myself, and you know, you get to thinking, and it was weird. I got there and I was like, I haven't been here in a while. And I realized like how cooped up I had become.
Yeah.
And it felt weird. Oh my God, I'm going to sound insane, but it felt weird. You know, I put my feet on the sand, and I was just like, God, I'm like, at the risk of sounding like a hippie or something, but I felt like, you know, grounded. Like it
felt like the earth was on you, almost like on your feet.
Seriously.
Mm-hmm.
And then I walked into the ocean, and it was all warm. It's like 90 degrees in there, and just feeling the water and the wave. There was really big waves today, but just getting out, even just to go do that, it made a huge difference in my mental, like,
in your psyche.
My psyche.
Yeah.
I'm not an indoorsy type of person. So I moved to an upstairs apartment. So it's been really hard because I can't just walk out my front door and go outside. So I have to make more of an effort to go and do something or go for a walk, and it's friggin' hot. But I'm working on it. And today it was nice. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to make a promise to myself to get out and, you know, go for a walk every day or whatever.
And that's what you got to do. You got to put yourself in a routine, you know, like I'm going to get up today and, you know, I'm going to go take Bella for a walk and then hit up the beach and then come back and do some research. You know, you got to get on that routine. And it's hard because
we've all been thrown, you know, we've all been thrown into this weird lockdown and then semi-open. We don't know what in the hell is going on. They don't know if they're sending kids back to school and people. I mean, it's insane.
They actually closed one school down here in Colorado Springs. Well, in Colorado Springs here in Colorado, they've already closed it. And we've already got 2 students that have COVID. So it's just
it's only a matter of time. They're going to shut the schools down. So parents that are sending your kids back, enjoy it while you can.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yes.
Because in Georgia, they already started school a few weeks ago, and they had to close down a couple schools because of COVID already. So
I've seen like 3 counties that are like severely affected.
Yeah, and I think they're rural counties too.
Yeah. It's all up in the air right now, and we've got cold and flu season coming up. So it's like, are we going to be able to determine?
I know. I feel like. What are we going to, like, are we going to know who's sick with what? And Yeah, it's crazy, but I feel for all the people that have young kids at home and have had to try to keep them occupied.
Yeah.
And homeschooling and
not trying not to keep them feel like they're cooped up, because they're kids. They want to get out and play.
Yeah, well, they want to get out and play, or they're like kick ass. I can play video games all day, and then you're like, oh my god, you don't want to get into that situation. So,
and how do you pull them out of that when they start school soon?
Yeah, so I feel for all of you parents with school-age children. I do. But yeah, just wondering how everybody's doing. Tomorrow's live show is at 9 a.m. Mountain
time. Yeah, 9 a.m. Mountain, 11 Eastern, and
10
Central.
there you go, 11 Eastern. Hey Yolanda, look at Yolanda. Wait. I see some extra letters after Yolanda's name. She's RN, but what's CHPN? She got a certification.
Yeah.
If you did, congratulations, Yolanda.
Yeah.
She's a hospice nurse, bless her heart.
Oh my gosh. Those people in that field have big hearts.
They do. All right, Dre. Well, I'm gonna get off here.
All right.
And we'll see y'all in the morning time.
All right, guys. Bye.
All right, bye-bye. Have a good night.
You too, guys.